the culture pillar is really important because it talks about inclusivity, and in my case it's around the governance area. So it's about women having the opportunity to sit around the table when decisions are made, not just about their game, but about the game in general. And I think that's really, really important. For much of my life, I guess, I've been sort of out of sync with what is expected. So if I go back to when I was young and newly married, I married a dairy farmer, and I had people who wouldn't talk to me about anything to do with the farm because they wanted to talk to my husband. What they didn't know was that I was the one that was responsible for all the finances and keeping the payments up and that. So quite an important decision maker. David and I did that together. So that was probably my first experience of not being accepted for the skills that you have because of your gender. The second one would be when I became principal of a co-ed school, which, given the name of the school, everyone assumed would be a female, a full all-girls school. And it wasn't. It was a co-ed school, but again, it wasn't common for females to be principals of a co-ed school. When it comes to football, I guess the thing that I got involved in football through my dad, through my kids, through my school work, and when I was elected to the FIFA Council, people assumed that I'd been a player. So I guess what I'm trying to say to you is that there are some stereotypes that we've had to work against. So, and I think for some women, that puts them off putting their names forward or having a go. So, and I would encourage everyone to have a go, because just gender doesn't define who you are. Well, that's a really funny thing, because just like when I got involved in football in New Zealand, I was shoulder tapped to serve on a federation board. Someone from New Zealand Football said, we'd like to put your name forward, for the FIFA Council. And I was finishing my doctoral thesis at the time, and I really needed to focus on that. And I went, oh yeah, that's fine. And but I also made contact with some other FIFA Council members and said, just tell me a little bit about the role. And I wrote a letter to the OFC executive and said, this is who I am, this is what I'd like to do, and then went from there, really. And then I just thought, oh, well, what'll be will be. One is that sometimes when there's hard decisions to be made or hard conversations, sometimes your male colleagues will ask you to take a lead. So you can be perceived as being really tough and hard-nosed, when in actual fact you maybe not. So that's one thing. So you have to realise that what you're doing will make a difference for someone else who will come after you. So that's really important. I think another thing that is quite hard is to have the confidence to speak up. And, in any role that you take on, there will always be a settling in, a transition in time, and that's okay. But when you see things or hear things that don't sit with your values or the values of your organisation, it's really important that you speak up, because sometimes there are others that are thinking the same, they just haven't had the courage. So that's something to think about. And I think for women, whether we like it or not, when you're in a male-dominated organisation or organisation, you have to you have to work a little bit harder. All right. So I'll give you an example. And the example would be that as a female principal, all right, people assumed that you couldn't take the hard decisions around poor student behaviour or something like that. Or it could be that you knew around the board table that some of the board members hadn't read their board papers. And for some men, that's okay. And I'm talking in the school setting, but I think the same could be applied to a football setting. But the reality is, if we don't read our papers, then we're not informed and we can't make the right decisions for the good of the game. I think women need to learn to be able to say no. I had a situation where I was asked to speak to someone about a concern, and I said, well, why do you want me to do that? And they said, oh, it's because you're a woman and it'll come better from a woman. And I went, you have to be kidding. And I said, I won't speak about it unless I've got some evidence to back up what you're saying. And when I found the evidence, I thought, right, I've got the evidence. And so if you've got evidence, you can speak up with confidence, and people can't contradict what you're doing because you're doing it for the betterment of whatever the cause is. I think we have to shoulder tap women that we can see potentially. So there is some research that would tell us that if there's a job going and it requires 10 skills, all right, a female will look at it and say, oh, I've only got 5 of those skills, I'm not going to apply for it. I don't have the skills. A male will look at it and say, oh, I've got 5 of those skills, I'm going to give it a shot. So I think if we can see, and that's what I'm saying, other women see potential in women, or men see potential in women, because it was a male who tapped me on the shoulder, then I think we should say, okay, I'll give it a go. I think we need to provide a wraparound approach for them so that they are supported, which is by giving them a mentor or finding a mentor for them. And a mentor is not about someone telling you what to do and how to do it. A mentor is someone who you trust in and you look up to, you believe in, who you think has more knowledge than you. And if a good mentor-mentee relationship, they will learn from each other. When I was principal of a high school, we were concerned about this student achievement. And when we dug down, we thought that it would be literacy was an issue for our young people. And then, so there's lots of different ways that you can focus on literacy. You can look at writing, you can look at comprehension, you can look at spelling, you can look at grammar, you can look at all sorts of things. But the least threatening was vocabulary. So when you can look at vocabulary across a school and all the different ways that words can be interpreted or defined depending on a subject, it was less threatening and people brought in. Out of that, the staff then decided, oh, we need to now go to look at comprehension. So you can see that you take the least approach. So I think in this space, the least threatening at this stage is possibly gender. Not for all nationalities or all countries. For some countries, having a woman as one of their delegates or sitting around their decision-making tables would be really scary in football. But in the first place, you start with one. At the New Zealand Football Executive, we started with one. When I joined the board, there were 2, and now we have 4. But the exciting thing is we're now working on our diversity. So we've just appointed our first Māori board member. We have a Māori board member of Indian descent. A number of us that sit around there that look like Europeans have a lot of different ethnicities involved as well. First of all, believe in yourself. You can do it, all right? It's a bit like our strategy, being all in. So if you want to make a difference, you have to be all in. You have to have the confidence to believe in yourself to contribute. So that's the first thing. Already talked about finding a mentor. That's a good point. Talk to somebody. You know, if there's someone out there who thinks, I wouldn't mind getting involved and how could I do that? I'd be more than happy for someone to give me a call, send me an email, all right? I think don't be afraid that what you're doing is too small. Actually, every small step will be a big step eventually. Someone has to start. And so I think the rule of thumb is dip your toe in the water, make a start, and don't forget to remember that any question that you ask is not a silly question, all right? So as I said before, if there's something that doesn't sit right with you in terms of the values of yourself or your organisation, ask the question. Because, and I guess the last thing I'd say is be prepared to accept that your position might be wrong because you don't have all the information. But jump in and have a start.